arrived back to this building in Detroit, all of our records have charted. All of us were famous. All of us were Motown artists and on the charts.
Why did Diana Ross truly hate David Ruffin more than anyone? Was there a deep personal issue between them? How did their relationship become so bad? What led to such strong feelings of dislike?
Baby, don't leave me. Ooh, please.
Did it affect her career or personal life? People always talk about the tension between them, but what was really behind it? Was there a specific event that made Diana Ross feel this way?
Let me tell you, got to feel it. Oh, yeah.
Diana Ross is one of the greatest names in music history. In her prime, no one could match her talent, whether it was her beautiful voice or her powerful lyrics. She set a high standard in the music industry, and even now her influence is still felt. People don't just see her as a pioneer, they see her as someone who helped shape what the music world is today. But being a big star doesn't mean life is easy. Diana's life had its fair share of struggles. These problems didn't just stay in her personal life, they affected her career too. As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. For Diana, her success may have brought too much pressure. Over time, she moved from one issue to another, and it wasn't always easy for her to see when things were going wrong.
We all arrived back to this building in Detroit. All of our records have charted. All of us were famous. All of us were Motown artists and on the charts.
Diana's success didn't just affect her, it also impacted the people around her. Some of those people were like family to her, but the pressures of fame sometimes made relationships difficult. And because Diana was such a big name, many people around her would say what she wanted to hear instead of what she needed to hear. This made it hard for her to notice when things were going off track. One of the most talked about parts of Diana's story is her feud with another music legend, David Ruffin. If you know music from the 1960s and 1970s, you've probably heard about both of them. They were huge stars back then. They even performed together, and to fans it looked like they were a perfect team. But behind the scenes, it was a very different story. Diana and David had a rocky relationship. Their feud wasn't always public because back in their time, public fights didn't help careers, especially in the music world. Both had teams working to keep their problems private. However, stories came out over the years that showed just how tense things were between them. Some say Diana didn't like David from the start. This dislike caused a lot of issues, not just for David's career, but also for his personal life. Going up against someone as powerful as Diana Ross wasn't easy. She was already a superstar, and her influence could make or break someone's career.
Let me tell you, got to feel it. Oh, yeah.
Recently, new details have emerged about their feud. These stories show that Diana might not have been as innocent in the situation as some people thought. While David Ruffin wasn't perfect either. When their groups, the Temptations and the Supremes, had to work together, Ruffin didn't seem too worried about how much power Diana had in the music industry, but things definitely got heated when they shared the spotlight. Back in the 1960s, the Temptations and the Supremes were the shining stars of Motown Records. Both groups started in Detroit, Michigan in 1959. The Temptations were originally called the Primes, and the Supremes were the Primettes. After signing with Motown in 1961, they got their famous names and soon became superstars. By 1964, both groups had massive hits. The Supremes with Stop in the Name of Love,
Stop in the name of love.
and the Temptations with My Girl.
What can make me feel this way, my girl?
These songs made them symbols of Berry Gordy's dream of creating music that appealed to everyone, no matter their background. They weren't just groups, they were Motown's pride and joy. Berry Gordy, the mastermind behind Motown, loved bringing people together, so it was only a matter of time before these two groups teamed up. In late 1967, the Temptations and the Supremes performed together on The Ed Sullivan Show, singing a mix of each other's songs. Fans loved it, so Gordy decided to make it bigger. In early 1968, the groups hit the studio together, and later that year, they released the album Diana Ross and the Supremes Join the Temptations. The lead single, I'm Gonna Make You Love Me, was a huge success, reaching #2 on both the pop and R&B charts. Diana Ross and Eddie Kendricks sang the lead vocals, and it seemed like a match made in music heaven, at least on the surface.
And I'm gonna make you love me. Ooh.
But behind the scenes, things weren't so smooth. During rehearsals for another Ed Sullivan Show performance, the Temptations noticed something strange. The music arrangements had been changed to fit Diana Ross's voice. Ruffin, always a perfectionist, was furious. To him, it felt like Diana was being treated like royalty, while the rest of them were just background players. Diana was already acting like a solo star. She had her own team of people taking care of her, separate from the Supremes. Plus, her relationship with Berry Gordy didn't help matters. It made her seem untouchable. For Ruffin, who was used to being in the spotlight himself, this was too much to handle. The tension hit a peak during their joint performance. Ruffin was determined to outshine Diana, and he poured his heart into the performance, making sure everyone knew he wasn't just there to play second fiddle. Diana and Gordy didn't like the singer getting outshined by one of the other stars, in this case Ruffin, and this reportedly led to Ruffin's career taking a major hit. I mean, it's a no-brainer that Gordy's power in the industry played a role in his downfall, but on his own, the man just spiraled for the worst. According to reports, by 1967, David Ruffin had begun demanding special treatment as lead singer, riding to and from gigs in a private Mink Line limousine with his then-girlfriend Motown singer Tammy Durrell, instead of in the group limousine used by the other four Temptations. The other members slowly became irritated and annoyed with Ruffin's behavior. Following Motown's decision to rechristen the Supremes as Diana Ross and the Supremes, Ruffin felt entitled to the same treatment and demanded that his group be renamed as well, to David Ruffin and the Temptations. Ruffin was also causing friction with Berry Gordy by demanding an accounting of the group's earnings. Motown partially acquiesced by allowing the Temptations to retain an outside accounting firm, but the firm did not have full access to the books from the Temptations' manager, International Talent Management, Inc. Some of this behavior was attributed to the fact that by this time, Ruffin had begun using cocaine regularly, building further tension within the group and causing him to miss several group meetings, rehearsals, and concerts. There was a consensus among the rest of the group that Ruffin needed to be replaced. When Ruffin missed a June 1968 engagement at a Cleveland supper club to attend a show by his new girlfriend, Barbara Gail Martin, daughter of Dean Martin, the group decided that he had crossed the line. The other four Temptations drew up legal documentation, officially firing Ruffin on June 27, 1968.
When you are a group, you have to move and think as one unit. You cannot have five guys going, five different directions. So
the next day, Dennis Edwards, a singer formerly of the Contours that Eddie Kendricks and Otis Williams already had pegged as a potential Ruffin replacement, was hired to take Ruffin's place.
But it's one thing to hold true to that vow once, you start to make huge amounts of money and doors open up to you that once would never. And, you're getting all kind of adulation, and success can act as a very strong aphrodisiac.
Edwards and Ruffin were good friends, and at first Ruffin went along with the changing of the guard and encouraged Edwards. However, at Edwards' official debut with the Temptations in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, on July 7th, Ruffin came to the show and jumped on stage, taking the microphone from Edwards, singing lead on Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. Ruffin repeated this stunt several times throughout the group's July tour run. Despite the group hiring extra security to keep Ruffin out, he continued to find ways to sneak into the venue and jump on stage when the group performed one of the songs he had once sung lead on. It doesn't take an expert opinion to see how that was the beginning of the end for the man, who, if I might add, tried to stand against Diana Ross. But it wasn't just him. Pretty much anybody who tried to challenge the singer's position at the center of all the attention was destroyed in the industry, even if it came from someone in her own group. The Supremes were one of the biggest music groups of the 1960s, creating songs that people still love today. But behind the scenes, things weren't always smooth. Mary Wilson, one of the original Supremes, once said there were big problems within the group. She believed Diana Ross, another member, tried to overshadow the others. The Supremes didn't start as stars. They began as a group called the Primettes, and for a while they were even nicknamed the No-Hit Supremes because their songs weren't very successful.
The company, they were called the No-Hit Supremes because for 2 years they'd struggled. And Barry had thrown Smokey at him, and even Smokey couldn't get a hit out of him.
Everything changed in 1964 when they released Where Did Our Love Go? That song made them famous, and soon they were competing with music legends like the Beatles and Elvis Presley.
Baby, don't leave me. Ooh, please.
The group originally had 4 members: Diana Ross, Mary Wilson, Florence Ballard, and Betty McGlone. When Motown Records signed them, Berry Gordy, the company's president, became very involved in their careers. He pushed Diana Ross to the front, making her the star of the group. This caused tension because Mary and Florence felt left out. It didn't help that Gordy and Ross were romantically involved, which made his favoritism even more obvious. Over time, the focus on Ross caused cracks in the group. Ross eventually left in 1970 to start a solo career. However, the outcome was still tragic for Florence. Despite Wilson's attempts to help, the consequences for Ballard were devastating. Heartbroken by her loss of position and the rising tensions in the group, Ballard turned to drinking to cope. As a result, she sometimes missed shows or had difficulty performing. Motown considered her a problem, and by 1967, Gordy had fired her from the group, further centering Diana. However, Ballard wasn't to take it sitting down.
I get the impression in the sense that Diana Ross kind of got lucky in the sense that, you know, there were people around her, as we know, Berry Gordy, head of Motown, who identified her as the one.
One of his favorite singers was Doris Day.
Ballard sued Motown for $8.7 million, and the claims she made in the court documents were downright disturbing. She said that Diana Ross and Berry Gordy had conspired to kick her out of the group. Her lawsuit failed, and in the years that followed, Ballard's life spiraled violently out of control. She lost her money and her home, eventually dying at the age of 32. It was a tragic end, and there was a lot of tension also between Mary Wilson and Diana Ross.
The girls argued. I mean, you get 3 women in a hotel room night after night after night. You're gonna... And as much as you don't see that on stage, the bitching started behind stage.
Their friendship turned sour, and it became clear that things were not right between them.
Diana Ross would do anything that Berry Gordy asked her to do. She never thought twice. She never said, I can't do that.
On August 5th, 2000, something important happened. Barbara Walters, a famous journalist, got a call from Diana Ross while she was working at ABC News in New York City. Ross wanted to talk about an interview that Mary Wilson had done the night before. In this interview, Wilson expressed her unhappiness and blamed Ross for stopping plans for a reunion tour for the Supremes. During her conversation with Walters, Ross was calm but serious. She said, "It saddens me." She recalled how Wilson had been excited when Ross first suggested a reunion, but now things had changed. Ross felt that no matter what they offered, Wilson would not be happy. She also mentioned Wilson's struggles, like the tragic loss of her son in a car accident in 1994. Ross said, "She's been through a lot of pain. It seems like she's directing it at me."
No, I think the unhappiness came when things started not to work that well in her life. She's had a lot of difficulties. I think she's coming from a lot of pain, and a lot of times when you're unhappy, you have to find some place to throw that.
Mary Wilson, who sadly passed away in 2021, seemed very upset in her interview. She claimed that Ross had made a deal for a reunion tour where Ross would earn between $15 to $20 million, while Wilson would only get about $2 million, maybe $3 million. Wilson said Cindy Birdsong, the other surviving member of the Supremes, would earn even less. She remarked, "There's something about Diana. She wants everything for herself." By 1977, the Supremes had disbanded completely. Berry Gordy later admitted he was in love with Ross and wanted to make her a big star. He did everything he could to support her, even when it hurt the group. Their personal lives also made headlines. In 1971, Diana Ross had a daughter named Rhonda. Diana married another man, her manager, Robert Ellis Silberstein. During her marriage to Silberstein, Diana kept working with Berry and Motown. She was busy building her music and film career, and Berry helped her with that. In fact, they both worked on the film Lady Sings the Blues, where Diana played Billie Holiday. While preparing for this role, she learned she was pregnant with her first child, Rhonda. Although Diana was married to Silberstein, they both knew that Rhonda's real father was Barry. But instead of telling Rhonda the truth, Silberstein raised Rhonda as his daughter. They decided to keep Rhonda's true paternity a secret.
Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make it all.
Growing up, Rhonda believed Berry Gordy was her uncle, not her father. She referred to him this way for years. In an interview with the New York Post, Rhonda shared that she felt something was different. As she grew older, she noticed that she didn't look like her siblings, who were Silberstein's biological children.
We were home. We had a very traditional upbringing in that way.
Yeah.
She would travel, and my grandmother, her mother, would take care of us until she passed when I was about 13.
Rhonda had a strong resemblance to Barry, and she couldn't ignore that. She said, "I looked just like Gordy, and my sisters looked just like their father," meaning Silberstein, who was a tall Jewish man. So even before her parents told her, Rhonda had a feeling about her real father. When Rhonda turned 13, Diana and Silberstein finally told her the truth about her biological father. Rhonda was relieved. The truth explained a lot for her, and she didn't feel angry or hurt. Instead, she felt closer to both her mother and Berry Gordy. Over time, Rhonda grew closer to her entire family, including Silberstein, even after he and Diana divorced in 1977.
You know, it's
Diana Ross dated Gene Simmons, the famous bassist and co-lead singer of the rock band Kiss. Diana had actually met Gene Simmons through her close friend Cher, who, had been Gene's girlfriend. Cher and Gene had been living together, and Cher suggested that he call up Diana, who she called her best friend, for Christmas gift suggestions. It seemed like an innocent suggestion, but when the two went shopping together, sparks flew. Before long, Diana and Gene's feelings took over, and Gene ended up breaking Cher's heart. The betrayal forever damaged the friendship between Diana and Cher. It was a truly messy situation. Regardless, Gene and Diana ended up dating for 3 years before parting ways in 1983. He moved on quickly, but so did she. Diana's life was a mix of big successes and tough struggles. After her marriage ended, things got worse. She started drinking too much, and her friends and family noticed. In May 2002, Diana went to rehab for 30 days to get help, but staying on track wasn't easy for her. Just 3 weeks after starting rehab, Diana left early to go back on tour. Even though her ticket sales were good, she wasn't doing well. By August, she went back to rehab, but left again before completing the program. Her struggles soon led to serious consequences. In December 2002, Diana was stopped by the police in Tucson, Arizona, for driving the wrong way on a one-way street. They gave her a breathalyzer test, and the results were shocking. Her blood alcohol level was 0.20, more than twice the legal limit of 0.08 in Arizona. The surprising part, she wasn't even in Arizona for work. She was staying at a health resort to try to recover. Diana pleaded no contest to the charges and was sentenced to 48 hours in jail. She served her time later that year. It was one of the lowest moments in her life, but thankfully she hasn't repeated the mistakes since then. Diana's story shows how tough addiction can be, but it also reminds us that seeking help is an important step toward recovery. Diana sparked controversy at the 1999 MTV Video Music Awards, which was unforgettable, especially because of Lil' Kim's bold outfit. The rapper wore a lilac sparkling jumpsuit with a mermaid vibe. The outfit had one side cut open, showing one of her breasts, which was covered by a shell-shaped pasty. It was shocking, but also a fashion statement that people still talk about today. What made that night even more talked about was what happened on stage with Diana Ross. Lil' Kim, Diana Ross, and Mary J. Blige were presenting an award together. As they walked onto the stage, Diana Ross did something unexpected. She reached over and playfully jiggled Lil' Kim's exposed breast. The crowd gasped, and it became one of the most iconic moments in VMA history. Later, Lil' Kim explained how she felt about the moment. In a 2013 interview, she said it wasn't a big deal to her. She thought Diana Ross was just being friendly and complimenting her bold look. "I think it was more of a playful, 'Wow, you look sexy' kind of thing," Kim said. She even joked that if there was ever a movie about her life, she'd want Diana Ross to play her mom. Mary J. Blige, on the other hand, had a different reaction. She felt upset about what happened. During an interview, she said she was embarrassed for Lil' Kim and didn't think it was okay. Mary called Lil' Kim her little sister and said she respects her bold style, but didn't like how the moment played out. Speaking of awards, Diana Ross has never won a Grammy Award for her music, despite her fame. The Supremes were nominated for Grammy Awards twice. They were nominated for their hit songs Baby Love and Stop in the Name of Love, but they didn't win either time, according to the Grammy website. After leaving the Supremes, Ross continued to have a successful solo career. She was nominated for a Grammy 12 times in total, including for her famous song Ain't No Mountain High Enough in 1970 and for Endless Love in 1981. She was even nominated for Record of the Year for Endless Love, a song she sang with Lionel Richie. But despite all of these nominations, Ross has never won a Grammy. Even though she never won, Diana Ross has still been a big part of the Grammy Awards. She presented awards at the ceremony 7 times over the years. And in 2012, she received one of the biggest honors a musician can get, the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. This award is given to artists who have made a lasting impact on music. When Diana Ross accepted the award, she gave a speech where she said, "To me, my lifetime achievement, ladies and gentlemen and the rest of the world, are my children." She added that being a mother was very important to her and helped her be creative as an artist. It's surprising that someone as talented as Diana Ross never won a Grammy, considering how much she has done for music. She has sung some of the most popular songs ever, and her style has influenced many artists. Her voice, energy, and stage presence are legendary. Yet despite all of this, the Grammys never gave her that golden trophy. Many people wonder why she was never given a Grammy. Some believe that it may have been due to the way the Grammy voting system works. The Grammys are often seen as favoring certain types of music or artists over others. Diana Ross, though hugely successful, may not have always fit the typical mold of the kinds of winners the Grammy voters often choose. Still, even without a Grammy, Diana Ross's place in music history is secure. Her impact on pop, soul, and Motown music is undeniable. And while she may not have won a Grammy, her career speaks for itself. Winning a Grammy is an honor, but it doesn't define an artist's legacy. Diana Ross will always be remembered as one of the greatest singers of all time.